Welcome to Gateway Open Office Hours, episode 38. I'm your host, Carter Laren. You can catch us live on Facebook right here every Friday at 10 a.m. Or you can go to oh.gtwy.co. We're also on YouTube, some kind of channel. Probably the word Gateway is in there somewhere. And where else? Podcasts on Google Play, iTunes, whatever, wherever you can find podcasts. Gateway Open Office Hours. I'm here today with my special guest. Let me get your name right. Let me get your name right. Is it pronounced Larson? Ben Larson?
That's correct. Yeah.
Welcome. And what do you do for a living, Ben?
I used to run this accelerator called Gateway, but I decided travel is a lot more fun.
I noticed.
So, but it's good to be back.
Welcome back, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I heard your wife has locked you down, so you're not allowed to travel and leave me.
Not allowed to travel. Yeah, I have a full schedule of parenting classes and taking care of the home.
Awesome. The first is, and this was just a test. I spilled my yerba mate here so that you could to see what your reaction would be.
Zamboni, I believe, is what it was called in college.
I wasn't aware of that, but must be a frat thing.
Yeah, I'm sure Luke knows what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah, fair. But good. You didn't scream and yell at me and send me into my room.
No, it's okay. I'm pretty relaxed now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because yesterday was 420, so you're
leftover
relaxation.
Today is 421 and got my caffeine.
Awesome. So let's before we delve into why you abandoned me and where you were, let's go over some news this past week.
Okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of 421, so it was funny. I was talking to a reporter from Politico on Wednesday, and before I was talking to her, I got sent an email and said, Ben, the reporter's asking, what are your plans for 420? And my response was, no plans, work. And then I sent a second email and said, I'm sorry, that was kind of an asshole response. But really, I just have a full schedule and I can't.
No, I thought it was awesome because I was CC'd on the original email, and my inclination, being me, was delete it. I was like, yeah, fuck you. Delete it. But you were like, no, we're working.
Yeah.
And it turned into like a decent article about,
yeah. Well, it's
we work.
What it turned into is a longer conversation about how the industry is evolving. And, 10, 20 years ago, these stories would have been, teenagers are sneaking out behind the bleachers and lighting up, or people are gathering in Golden Gate Park, which they still do, and that's, part of the culture.
They did yesterday, yeah.
But it is, from what I could tell from my Facebook feed, it might be a little bit biased, but, 420 is turning more into a representation of how far the industry has come, what it means to different people, how different people are being included. Our friend John Downs wrote a beautiful post yesterday about...
Yeah, I was just thinking about that when you said that, yeah.
Yeah, how it kind of changed his life for the better.
Yeah.
And for us that are just working hard to kind of keep the industry moving forward, it's still a lot of work. We literally back-to-back meetings all day yesterday before I had to leave for a parenting class.
Wow, that's some massive stoner stuff you did yesterday.
I know. I did wind down the night with a nice little
but that's the thing, right? So I guess in a culture where cannabis is stigmatized, 420 is like your excuse to go quick, celebrate being sneaky and deviant.
Right.
But in a culture where every fucking day you drink a somatic, it's like...
I'm going to celebrate today by drinking
another somatic. It's like, okay, well, I also saw that it has turned into more... This is kind of personal. I saw a lot of personal stories. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people responded to John's Facebook post,
yes.
Right, with their own personal stories about what cannabis meant to them, and I like that direction of taking the 420 holiday in the direction of the importance of cannabis and what it means.
To take it a step further, even the social gatherings, like Magnolia Wellness was doing a farmers market. The back end of all that is like a huge marketing and product push by all these different companies.
Right.
I saw.
Wait, people are sneaking capitalism into 420?
Even the 420 fellows that have been around for a long time, yes. Different wrappers and packaging just for the one day. This is it is definitely turning into a real industry, and the The cool thing is, I don't know. I don't know if everyone thinks it's cool, but a lot of mainstream brands are like getting behind the holiday. You know, whether it's mainstream marketers pushing mainstream brands or, you know, PC Mag coming out with articles on 420. You know.
Someday Google will change their logo on 420, and that's when we know we'll have made
Ooh,
it. Right?
can we make that a push for next year? Market. That's a new effort.
That's our goal for next year.
Yeah, may or may not know someone at Google, but
yeah, some kind of.
We'll
I think
see.
she was in a parenting class. Cool. Well, yeah. I mean, I agree, and I think it's exciting, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see all the kind of economic activity that's happening. Frankly, because I mean, in my view, being a capitalist, it's like great. Cheaper, more variety, better medicine available to more people is
right.
what happens when it comes out of the shadows, and so it's great. You're seeing all these different farmers markets, like you said, product pushes, introduction of new products, and kind of drawing in mainstream culture a little bit too. Like, oh, it's kind of a day to talk about it and bring people in and
right.
educate them, which is awesome. So
yeah, but I think I kind of inserted myself there. Was there other news that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, there was other news. I guess, so what? There's this recent CBS News poll. 61% now of Americans support legalization.
Right.
Which is awesome. And I think it's 88%
Was that a
for
CBS
medical.
News poll, or did they just quote the old Gallup poll?
No,
okay.
it's a CBS News poll. The old Gallup poll was 60, so we've gained 1%.
Oh, all right.
I think, if I recall correctly.
Or as Trump would say, fake news.
Totally fake news. Right. But 88% support medical cannabis. And speaking of Donald Trump, if you're listening, Trump administration, 71% believe the states should be left the fuck alone. So probably some of those are conservative Republicans. So
I don't know if they listen.
Oh, he totally listens.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm absolutely sure he listens.
He's probably watching right now.
Yeah, we're pretty compelling. He's one of our 5 viewers. I'm sure. So,
awesome. All right. Well,
yeah. Also we gained a state. We have to update all of our material.
Right.
West Virginia legalized
29.
medical. Yeah.
Tick.
Yeah.
I feel like 30 is a good number, right? 30 of 50, 3/5, like.
Yeah. Sure. I guess 30 is a great number, Ben.
Let's shoot for 30. Who's the 30th?
It was a shitty number when I was 29 and about to turn 30, but it's a great number now.
Sure. Okay.
I wish I was 30 again. So sure. And also, I should have brought this up with Trump about Trump. Sheldon Adelson.
Oh.
If you don't know who Sheldon Adelson is, you're probably actually not in the cannabis community, but that's okay. Basically, casino magnate, rich dude who funds a bunch of anti-legalization stuff.
Behind the whole Arizona thing.
Yeah. It turns out he donated $5 million to Trump's inauguration committee, which is the largest donation anyone's ever made to any president's donation.
That doesn't explain anything about his appointees.
No, yeah. And here's Jeff Sessions.
Right.
So yeah, that's nice. Okay. Glad we're draining the swamp. Yeah. And I don't know. Luke found this other weird story. I'm kind of looking past the camera at Luke because it's a kind of like a disturbing story. There's this Massachusetts chemist. What's her name? Can we shame her? Anyway, she worked for the state, and it turns out that her job was to like test drug samples in like prosecutorial cases. And apparently she mishandled forged signatures and did like false positives on 20,000 samples. So
wait, like there were 20,000 cases that she was involved in, or there were literally 20,000 forged...
20,000 drug cases that she did something wrong with.
Oh my.
Right.
God.
And I guess what they call her Superwoman because she was so fast. Yeah, it doesn't take long to forge a signature. I don't know what the big deal is.
So fast. Done.
I could do 30,000, no problem.
So real name Annie Dukin?
Annie Dukin.
Annie Dukin? Awesome.
Fake name Superwoman.
Fake name is Superwoman. Real name is Annie Dukin.
Yeah.
Okay, so, if you know her, go shame her. She probably put people in jail for no reason.
Awesome. Gotta love the system.
Yep. So I just want to end on a positive note. with the news. So, well, actually, there is a semi-positive note in that she's being caught, and like cases are now like
They're going to go reverse them.
yes.
Thank you. Well,
So
thank
like
you, Lord.
semi-positive, although in many cases, their lives have already been ruined because
Yeah. As many fine people in
drugs are bad. Okay.
As many fine people in the industry say, it's not a gateway drug, it's the gateway to truth. And the truth is our government's fucked up, and we're going to find that out time and time again for the rest of our life, probably.
Yeah, I guess we could have named Gateway Red Pill instead. But
It'll take a bit more explaining, I think.
yeah, probably. That'll be for the next.
That's a Matrix quote for anyone that's wondering.
Yes, and that will be for some other illegal substances.
Sure.
That'll be our next one.
Yep. That's our ayahuasca.
Okay, so I may be the only one that's curious, but where the fuck were you? Why did you leave me alone with these companies after demo day? And what happened?
The funny thing is I barely remember being here for demo day because it was just like there was Canatech in Tel Aviv. And
Yeah, because you left me before demo day, swooped in for demo day.
Yeah.
Waved at some people and then got on a plane.
Yeah,
and left.
that's all I did.
Like,
No, I didn't sleep for 7 nights, and then I left.
oh, that's true. You did come in and not sleep. I forgot about that part.
No, I mean, it just happened that my two worlds collided while I was in Berlin, and the minute I left demo day.
So you're the furry convention? Is that what you're talking about?
Wow, trying to get me in trouble here. Okay. No. The first conference was a tech conference called Valley in Berlin. Near and dear to my heart just because I've kind of been there since the inception and have
Is
been.
that Sasha's thing?
It is, yeah.
okay.
Sasha from Founder Institute. Now moving on and kind of joining the hustle, which I'll get to in a little bit. Yeah, it was just great. The conference has been going on for like 3 years now, like twice a year. And it's just a great community of the German startup ecosystem, and kind of I got to transition over the last few years from talking about tech and then kind of slowly inserted this concept of cannabis and cannabis tech. And, being that it was
Like kind of like a gateway, like sneaking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tech
Yeah.
was the gateway to
Yeah,
cannabis,
tech was-
apparently.
yeah.
And then, it was Sasha's last conference, so I just kind of dedicated the talk more to the hustle of being an entrepreneur.
I want to talk about the talk, but also you were at ICBC while you were there, right?
Right. So yeah, 4 days later, Alex Rogers and Dean Arbit were hosting ICBC, International Cannabis Business Conference, in Berlin, which a lot of people were surprised by. Like I was talking to a lot of the startup community, beforehand, and like a cannabis conference in Berlin.
Yeah, no, and even you,
Yeah.
even you were like, I wonder how many people will be there, like how successful is it
Yeah,
going to be?
I
But
was-
then afterwards, you said it was
I
great. And
I was
well
curious.
attended. Yeah.
Well, Alex has some roots in Germany, and did a good job at like hustling people up. And apparently, they had people registering from like 42 different countries. And there's a lot of countries in Europe, which is
Sure.
beneficial. But yeah, the crowd was a large mix of politicians, scientists, and business people, and a nice little core contingent from the Bay Area crew were there. So kind of like, yeah, again, my two worlds colliding. It's
Awesome.
like, what are all my cannabis peeps doing in Berlin? But there's a lot of interest, and it became very clear that it's going to be a very kind of slow process in Germany, a very regulated medical market to start, to see how that kind of maybe eventually grows into, dare I say, a recreational market or adult use market.
Are Germans allowed to have recreational activities? Is that a...
It's large. You mean regarding cannabis, or they
Just generally? Like
Germans love their recreational.
I know. But they're very, very restrict. Cannabis is not, like, Germany's not the first country I think of when I think of, like, chill.
Right. So, actually, there's this common thing in a lot of European countries where the cultural city center, like Berlin in this case, doesn't actually closely associate with the rest of the country. So if you look at Parisians in France, Tel Avivians in Israel.
San Francisco and Bakersfield.
Sure. Or California. In this
Yeah, the rest of the,
Yeah.
whatever, the dustbin.
But yeah, so in Berlin, there's a very strong counterculture, and or more liberal, and
Okay.
so I could see it becoming commonplace. It's largely unenforced, But yeah, it's before it's actually a supported and regulated system. It's hard to tell.
But the focus now is medical uses. And
Generally,
stuff.
yeah. A lot of CBD being advertised. But it's cool. There's the movement is certainly there, and there's a large support. The conference was very professional, and because it was Berlin, there was one hell of an after party.
Yeah, those after parties go all night in Berlin. Yeah.
And I like to say they're my favorite part, not because of the partying, but because of the quality networking that you get to do.
Do you like to say that?
I do. So I'm back, and
tell us about what you
good.
talked about at Valley in Berlin, because I like the title, and
Sure.
so just for backstory, which you probably won't tell everyone, is like, I think you had this slide when you got on a plane to go,
I did.
but that was all.
That was it.
You were to talk about this slide on the plane.
I did.
Got off, gave the talk.
Yeah.
In typical Ben Larson fashion.
I went from demo day to the plane, wrote the talk.
Yeah, you didn't sleep either,
landed.
right? I think you
No,
partied
there was not.
all night. I heard the stories because I left early because I'm an old man.
Again,
but, yeah.
networked. I
Networked.
networked all night.
Yes.
Got on the plane, prepared the talk, interspersed a little bit of sleep so I could survive. Landed, went straight to the conference, gave the talk, took a nap.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then stayed out till 5 a.m. networking.
Right, for the next 4 days because it's Berlin.
Right.
Okay. So
But that's all part of it, right?
hustle hard or die trying. This is
Right.
this is your talk. Hustle hard or die trying.
Yeah, and I can't take full credit for this. I think actually, I don't know if it's verbatim, but Adeo, who we mentioned quite a bit from Founder Institute, talks about this quite a bit. It's
Does he use this exact phrase?
yeah, I don't know if it's verbatim. But,
Yeah. Take credit then, man.
I did.
Okay,
Full
good.
credit. That's why it says Ben Larson
Right, yeah,
instead
okay,
of Adeo
good.
Resi.
Okay, so what's your talk? Give us the let's see, what time is it? All right, you've got it. You could condense your talk. Go.
No, I mean I'm not gonna regurgitate the talk because I'm sure Scout 24 will be posting the video fairly shortly. But what I did want to do is discuss it with you because we talk about these concepts quite a bit, and basically if you think of each word as a letter, I kind of turn it into an acronym. So it's like, I talked about hustling. I talked about
HHOD.
Well, no, I meant like
What?
hustle is a topic, hard is a topic, or is a
Oh, I
topic,
see, okay.
die is a topic, trying is a topic.
Got it.
So we can talk about it. But what I did start with was kind of like a personal story of I haven't always been an entrepreneur. In fact, my entrepreneurial journey technically started 6 or 7 years ago. But the concept of hustling has always been there, and it's always been a big part of me. I told this story about thinking back to when I was a child, and my parents and I would go up skiing in the mountains quite a bit. They were ski bums growing up, and they kind of started me off pretty early, 3 years old, I think. And I remember I got good enough to the point where I could keep up with them, and I could keep up with them to the point where I'd make it through an entire day without falling. And I remember one day I was gloating to my parents, and I was like, "Mom, Dad, I made it the entire day without falling." And my mom's like,
That's great, sweetie.
Yeah, that is
yeah.
totally my mom.
Yeah.
My mom, like, even
No,
if
no,
I'd fallen
yeah,
100 times, she'd be like, "You're the greatest skier
Right,
that's
yeah.
ever graced the face of this earth." My mom doesn't have that voice, but
No, I understand. Yeah.
yeah. My dad, always supportive, always very proud. I think he took it as an opportunity for a
It's a teaching moment.
It was a teaching moment.
Yeah.
Yes, and he basically said to me, he's like, if you're not falling, you're obviously not trying hard enough. And
Good
I'm
old
like,
Papa Larson.
I'm like, whoo, tough love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like at a shallow level, like I understood what he's saying. It's like,
Right.
if you're not pushing yourself as hard as humanly possible, if you're not like dancing that line of failure and success, are you really learning as quickly as you can be?
Right.
Now that I'm probably the age that he was when he told me this, which is just a weird concept in itself.
Right.
It's like it's a profound fucking statement. It's
Yeah.
like I've realized that this has kind of interwoven itself into my entire life, like
Yeah.
the way I do recreational sports, the way I love and care about people, the way like I work, and it's responsible for who I am, my personality, probably why I have a shattered elbow that's had been replaced.
You don't really need to.
But yeah, I mean, this was like, this kind of was the beginning of the hustle for me. Like that I realize now, this has worked its way into like my lifeblood. And I don't know if everyone approaches life like this, but I do realize that the people I like working with and the people that I look for as far as entrepreneurs go do kind of have this built into them.
Yep. Yeah, I love the Papa Larson quote. I'm going to put him up there with Papa Smurf as like
Yes.
icons of knowledge.
He actually kind of, I've never said this to him. I've never
He reminds you of Papa Smurf? I could see
A
that
little
a little bit
bit,
if he had the
yeah.
hat. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got the mustache and stuff.
Well, I know what I'm getting him for Christmas.
So that kind of like kicked off the topic of hustle, which I do want to talk to you about because I know you have a lot to contribute to this.
I don't feel like it.
Are you high?
No,
Okay.
it's the yerba mate.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, in Silicon Valley, hustle's kind of reached that cliche status. It's up there with
It's like grit.
It's like passion, unicorn, grit, you name it, hustle. But hustle could mean a lot of things, right? Like,
I think there's a more sophisticated word for it, which is not en vogue, which is resourcefulness.
dude.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. But before we get to that,
Dude.
Okay, so going back to the many meanings of hustle, there's bad hustle. To be hustled is not necessarily a good thing. And so that kind of, I want to frame kind of hustle into, again, what we look for in entrepreneurs and like what we think is good. There are the people that hustle and like can hustle business. And maybe you dance that line of, oh, you're a little salesy, but you're not like trying to like, I don't even know you're not trying to like pull a fast one on people.
I was going to say, you're not trying to gain value through deceit.
Right. Don't be a used car salesman. Used car salesmen earn a bad name. I'm not saying all used car salesmen are bad, but most of them have earned a bad name. They're all bad because they're trying to they're trying to get as much value as possible out of something that probably has little value. It's like a lemon, and they're trying to.
I mean, yeah. To me, there's like there's a distinct difference between an honest salesman trying to get a good deal, right, and someone who's intentionally deceiving you to get a good deal. And the way I can think about it is if you play the long game and the long game is life, then it's not in your self-interest to fuck people over in the short term. And if you play the short game, like you might hustle in a bad way, like you might trick that person into doing what you want in the short term, but they will never work with you again.
Yeah. So the best way to prevent that was to be empathetic, like to put yourself in the opposite party's shoes and like create value for them, not for yourself, right? And actually,
wait, can you reminding me of something that this might be TMI, but like a therapist said this to me.
Sorry, we all know you go to therapy. It's fine.
We all know I need it. Now everyone knows
more of it. More.
He said, never ask anyone to do anything that they perceive is against their self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which was a really weird thing for me to think about. But it's this idea that like, I might think I know what's best for you, but if that's not what you perceive as best for you, I shouldn't be asking you to do it. I could be trying to convince you that it's best for you. Like, hey, I think this other thing is better for you. Let's talk about it. But, I think there's this kind of idea, which is, it's all related to empathy, right? It's going back and like, hey, what's in their best interest?
Right.
How can I actually help them?
Yeah.
Not
Create
how
value,
do I get what I'm
right?
getting in. There you go. Create value, right? And this ties into a whole bunch of things philosophically. Like that's kind of the inherent win-win of free markets, where it's like voluntary exchange of I want the iPhone more than my $700, and you want my $700 more than the iPhone. Like that's how the exchange happens, right?
That's right.
But it's all about creating value. And if I have buyer's regret after that, you failed at that transaction.
So I got into this weird place where I was talking a lot about or denouncing the bad hustle and talking about what good hustle is. And then I found out in the talk that I was in this place where I wasn't talking about hustle anymore. I was talking about creating value.
Yep.
And so I just had a terrible transition, and I'm like, all right, well, let's talk about what real hustle is.
Forget that. Let's get
It's
shit
like,
done. Yeah.
And so, it's talking about getting shit done, and not getting shit done for shit's sake, but like actually getting the important shit done.
Moving the ball, like I hate sports analogies, but I use this one anyway. It's moving the ball forward every day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And pretty much, I mean, 95% of the time, even yesterday when I was talking to a company that I've been advising is like, what does that mean, and how do you really make sure that you're getting the right shit done? And do the essential. Like, focus on the essential. And like, one of my favorite books to kind of recommend is Essentialism by is it Greg or George?
I don't know. You told me to
McKeown?
read that and I forgot about it. I'll put that back on my list. Essentialism.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, yeah, you should maybe read it.
No, I'm sure I should. Yeah.
No, but it's been really great. It teaches you how to really focus on what is going to create the most value for yourself in a given day, and to focus on that, to shed everything else, and to not feel guilty about it. And we often tell people that the number one goal, or the best way to define being an entrepreneur, or to know when you're winning at entrepreneurialism, is entrepreneurship.
We'll wave the English language. Keep going.
The best way to define it is that you become very good at being selective about which balls you drop.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is saying no. It's not saying yes to things that you should do. It's the recognition that time is finite, and that means saying no to a bunch of stuff that you kind of like,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't be doing.
Or even then, it's like things that need to be done, but they aren't important and they aren't essential. If people talk about the quadrant that you can draw about like importance and whatever, it's just.
There's a shit ton of analogies you can
Yeah,
make, but
yeah.
like, yes.
But the important part is that you become comfortable in it, and you become efficient at it, and you stop being guilty about it, right? So that was, that's been one of my biggest lessons in kind of like learning the hustle, and realizing that you'll never work yourself out of being too busy and all that kind of stuff, and just coming to terms with everything.
Yeah.
And it seems to resonate, and it seems to get people in the right mindset and on the right track, and then you can start putting in the other building blocks.
Can I? This is just random, but I want to play devil's advocate for just a second.
Sure.
I think the right kind of founder will have that experience. But if you're the type of person who actually can get to a point where you're not too busy, you're probably not a good entrepreneur. Like, I remember feeling like I was too busy, and feeling like once I made a whole bunch of money, I would be less busy.
Yeah.
And what happened was, like, I had a first exit, and I spent that money creating more busyness for myself. But like starting companies and advising companies, doing this and doing that, starting projects, and like I just became more busy. But I know there are people who just don't want to be busy at all and look to not do anything. And the reason I want to bring this up, not related to hustle necessarily, but I mentored at Founder Institute the other night, and I had a conversation with someone afterwards, and actually maybe I said this in front of the whole class too, and I know you feel this way about Founder Institute. If you go through Founder Institute and decide that you don't want to be an entrepreneur, that's a win.
Yeah.
You have
saved yourself.
Instead of saving yourself years of struggle, you took a couple months, put the basically entrepreneur VR headset on.
Yeah.
Right? Tried it, realized you don't like it, and you go back to, your cushy job at Google.
Well, that's, I when we were working with Founder Institute, that became like a big part of my conversation I used to have with people, and part of the quote unquote sales pitch, right? It was like, people would ask like, what are the biggest values that Founder Institute has? And, there was the number one value was like, if you are potentially a good entrepreneur, we will get you there, and we'll get you there very quickly. If you're not, we help you figure it out.
We'll get you there too.
And you only lose $2,000 doing it,
Right.
because that's way better than your life savings and your wife and friends and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like I totally derailed this conversation, so I apologize. But
No, I mean, it's great. We derail all our conversations, so it's okay.
yeah, that's my job, kind of.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay,
this
good.
is what it's about.
All right, so get back to doing the essential and go back to your thing.
Well,
here.
no, just like your transition there, the final transition for hustle was, a little rough, but probably because I was riding on a plane with lack of sleep. The last thing that is super important when you're talking about hustle and you're talking about being a strong entrepreneur is resourcefulness. And going back to what we jumped forward to, it's like the most important thing, right?
So there's a difference, right, between resources and resourcefulness.
Right.
Right.
Well, resources, you could think of as like, you could think of your resources as the puzzle pieces. Everyone has different resources. Some people have more money. Other people have more time or connections or are a more approachable and friendly person. Right. Who knows what it is? You have your resources. Right. How are you going to use them to move the ball forward, regardless of lack of other resources?
Right. This is reminding me of the conversation we had with Charlie yesterday, who was describing when he was like a kid. He was working for a window washing company, and I guess I don't remember the details, but like they went out of business or changed what they're doing or left the area, and they had these clients that they left in the lurch. And he was like young guy, and was like, well, I'll just like strap my ladder to my bike or whatever, and go wash windows for those clients.
He built this multi-million-dollar.
He ended up building a company with like 20 some odd employees and blah blah blah. And like
corporate contracts,
right? So
I love that story.
But it's resourcefulness, right? It was like, oh, what do I have? A ladder, and a rag. And some contacts.
So Charlie, the founder of a company called Spoil, which I think is a pretty cool company.
I love it. I wish that it was fully funded.
Yes. But, some business models are harder to fund, but it doesn't stop it. Just talking to him, I know he's a successful entrepreneur.
That's why I brought him in yesterday.
Yeah. So
lots of love to you today, Charlie, if you're watching.
Maybe we can get him into the cannabis industry.
Yeah. But like that's kind of that resourcefulness of like.
Yeah. Or, often our newest example that we love telling is JP, right? It's just a software engineer building a hardware software product, could have gone the route of like building this big vision and selling it, raising a little bit of money, producing a proof of concept, going back, raising more money. That wasn't going to work. It was going to take too much time. We have only, he's got limited time in our program.
Right.
So he fucking went to Home Depot, bought the pieces and put it together and figured out how to be a mechanical, hardware, electrical engineer on his own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's resourcefulness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He skipped over the like I think a lot of times people who haven't founded before have this idea about like the right way to do things, right? And the right way for JP to do things would have quote right way to do things would be like get a designer and put some CAD file together and blah 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 and get someone to do a prototype and and like that's all great. That's expensive and time consuming and everything else. And really, he figured out some. I don't want to share any of his secrets, but he figured out some core tech that he needed to do.
Right.
Went out, got it, bought the rest of the parts at Home Depot, and built the prototype. And it's like, oh, okay, I did it. And that then he can leverage to go do the fancy things like have it actually manufactured and designed. Right. So, yeah.
So,
all right. So
hustle is definitely the anchor of the talk, and it definitely
good because we're running out of time. So there's lots of words there. So
I mean, it's Friday, man. I got all the time in the world. No. So hard. It's fucking hard. How many times do we have to say it? Like being an entrepreneur is not easy. It doesn't get easier. It's hard, and like it's hard to the point where, well, you need to differentiate and be defensible.
That was not your best segue. I thought you were going to quote Elon Musk about chewing glass or something. But
Elon Musk is in my notes here. Elon is not wealthy and famous because he does easy jobs and because he works a 4-hour work week.
Right. That's Paris Hilton you're thinking of.
Well, I was just going to say, fuck you, Tim Ferriss, for trying to convince people that there's a 4-hour work week. Everyone out there, I've talked to Tim. It was an SEO play. He doesn't work 4 hours a week. He hustles his ass off, So anyways.
You can work 4 hours a week. It's just you have a different kind of life.
Yeah.
Than what you might imagine.
Sure. Right. That's fine. Go move to Thailand where it costs like $180 a month to live.
Right.
Anyways, Elon, hard products, works his ass off, goes nearly bankrupt.
More than once.
Yeah, more than once.
Right.
And that's what it takes. That's the moral, like, find a way to differentiate, be defensible. You become defensible by doing the hard shit, right? Like, a patent doesn't make you defensible. You know, a cool idea, a first mover, you know, having a moderate, working at Google for 4 years, you know, these are not differentiating factors. These are not what make your company defensible. So
unless you can steal the IP you had at Google and bring it to Uber, then it's totally possible. Like, that could be a thing. I'm just throwing ideas out.
Right. So the point is do the hard work, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. You're going to get your first round of funding. It's going to get harder. You're going to get a second round of funding. It's going to get harder. Like, it doesn't get easy. Like, this is a fucking hard job that you've chosen to do. Don't think that it's easy. And it gets to the point where, I don't know.
What is that?
That was a calculation I did of credit cards not that long ago.
That you spent starting Gateway, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I should do that of mine as well.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, to someone like Trump or something, this is probably a measly number.
That's Trump change. Sorry. I don't know what I'm in the mood.
I mean, that was great. But to me, that was a lot of fucking money, and it caused me a ton of anxiety. And, you know, brought up the conversation with my wife that it's like, through thick and thin, like, like, are we going to make this? And, you know, again, something that Adeo
Maybe
says,
not.
Yeah. So something that we say all the time is, you know, you
The
might
fastest way to
bankruptcy and divorce, right?
Right, yeah.
So bankruptcy, potential divorce. I actually told people very honestly on stage, my wife and I had to have a conversation last year. It was like, I need your support for at least, at maximum, all I'm going to ask you, 1 more month.
Right.
I need 1 month to make this happen. I know I can make it happen. If I fail, I will either stop or you
can
have permission to leave me. but I need you, you know.
Thank you, Rush.
Thank you, Rush. Yes, I love you. And that's what I mean. God, it's like so.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Got it. Hard.
Highs are high, lows are low. The amazing thing is that you find out if you can make it through those first couple years of being an entrepreneur where you experience really high highs, where you feel on top of the world, and then a week later you're crying in a dark room by yourself. Like, it's hard. And sometimes it feels like, well, either, wow, this is great, nothing could beat this, or shit, I'm going to go jump off a bridge.
Right. And those seem to happen back to back often.
Yeah.
It's like very manic experience.
But it starts to, like, you find yourself, like, normalizing these experiences and then realize, like, doing a mind shift. And you realize you're no longer a person kind of going through these ups and downs. You merely have a job where it is to manage these ups and downs and kind of keep the ball moving forward, like, irregardless of what's occurring. Right.
Your capacity for, like, drama increases pretty dramatically, and at least with respect to work.
It's like, oh, so and so walked out on the job. It's like, okay, well,
that happens.
Where can we do better?
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like, do we want a new job description? You know, so there's that. And then misery loves company, and emails need proofreading.
Yeah. Michael.
So, for the love of God, get a co-founder or a founding team. Prove to me that, like, you're not just going to be that person in a dark room crying to yourself, that you actually have a shoulder to cry on or work through something. You know, in marriage classes, and I often actually say that, you know, relationship books make great business books. Mm-hmm. But in this case, like, I've heard the advice on both sides. Like, it's easy to give up if you're a solo founder. It's much harder to give up if you have two people, because it requires both people giving up at the same time.
Yeah, it's even harder if those two people have a baby.
Right. Does that make Michael and Luke our babies? Is that?
I was thinking of the business as baby.
Oh,
But,
okay.
You know, hey, you know, whatever analogy works for you.
This is a great show. I love this. Okay.
I want to know what you did with or. That's
the most important. No, it wasn't.
That's the most important word. Okay.
It was.
Go for it.
It was one of the most important
Make your
words.
case.
And it goes back to what we were talking about with Founder Institute. Is maybe you're not supposed to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Like-
maybe. I mean, I don't even really not supposed to be. I don't actually like using terminology like you're not cut out to be or you're not supposed to be. Like
Some people aren't cut out to be. I'm sorry.
sure, but I actually I'm not trying to be a hippie about this, but like I don't think there's judgment in that. It's and not everyone has to be an entrepreneur.
I'm not judging.
Not
I'm just
everyone
saying-
should be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Not everyone is happiest as an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And that's fine. We need people who aren't entrepreneurs also to do great things, their own thing.
very
So
necessary.
That's fine.
Thousands of them are necessary.
You know, everyone like I will never be a rock star, and that's fine. And some people will never be entrepreneurs, and that's fine. And I'll never be able to do my taxes.
Yeah.
That's-
Or sometimes you have an or in the middle of like your trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've used a lot of brain power in failing at something. Maybe you need to take a break. It's okay. Swallow your pride. Go work for someone.
Right.
Take a break. Figure it out. And then take another crack at the bat.
Yep.
But once you are in that position of, you know, entrepreneurship, this is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to take this one? I literally just regurgitated what you always tell people.
Well, I mean, I do this exercise with people.
I
right?
made the crowd actually.
Did you make them do my exercise?
I did. They're German, so it was a little lackluster.
I get that. Yeah, how do you say "I am not my idea" in German? I don't.
Maybe I should have gone with that. I was making him go English.
Yeah, that may have ruined it. Without giving the whole presentation about this,
Sure.
a lot of entrepreneurs tie their self-esteem to their business and specifically to their idea. And what that means is that when there's a problem with their business or someone criticizes their idea, even if it's valid, they're incapable of objectively recognizing that criticism or failure as true and something that needs to be dealt with or worked around or considered. And they react very defensively because they feel personally attacked.
Right.
And so one of the exercises that I do with, actually not only Founder Institute, but I think we've done this with the gateway companies
Yes.
as well, right?
And Women Grow and any
Yeah,
other organization
right.
we get to.
Anytime I talk to early stage entrepreneurs, basically, is I have a conversation with them about mindset and self-esteem and not tying it to their idea, and then we do this exercise in class where they basically just kind of take a deep breath, close their eyes, and kind of repeat like, "I am not my idea," and we kind of like force people to
I
do
think
that.
you are turning into a hippie. This is kind of weird.
I'm totally a hippie.
The capitalist
Gun-toting hippie.
Gun-toting hippie. That's a new URL.
Yeah, go register that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's super important to be able to tie your self-esteem to more credibly, more concretely to yourself, your own value as an individual, not to the particular thing you're doing right now. Frankly, this applies like you mentioned before, it applies to relationships. It applies to lots of other things. Like you're also not your partner,
Right.
right? You're also not where you live. You're also not your country. Like you're yourself,
Yeah.
right? So if you can actually embrace this in all areas of your life, it's probably great. But entrepreneurship specifically, you're not your idea. You're not your business, and embracing that almost paradoxically allows you to make your business more successful, because when someone comes along and points out a wart on your business, you don't freak out. You kind of look at it and go, "Oh shit, you know what? That is a problem."
Mm-hmm.
But since I'm not that,
Right.
I will now work around that and change something and do whatever, right? And so, I think that's super important. And you and I have had this conversation. Founder psychology is like the number one most critical thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about going back to
concern.
school to get my sociology degree or something.
They won't teach you anything good. I can give you books.
Okay. And we talked about this quite a bit. This kind of loops into what we were just talking about. Just, you need to be honest with others. Going back to the empathy thing, creating value. You need to be honest with yourself. I mean, it's just like self-awareness is one of the most important things as an entrepreneur.
Socrates, know thyself.
And I hope I don't get in trouble with this. Like Adam Bierman from MedMen is.
You gonna get MedMen pissed at us now?
Yeah,
Jesus
I mean,
Christ, I got Oakland pissed at us last week. You're gonna get MedMen?
No, I don't think so.
Go ahead.
I don't think so because Adam is a self-aware person.
Okay.
He's a little rough around the edges. He's kind of a hardcore business person, and that's the character or the person that he plays. But he's self-aware, and he will wear it on his sleeve, and he'll admit it. And he's like, but that's why I have great people that I work with, and if you don't like me, talk to these people.
That's why I have them.
Yeah, and when I knew him less, I don't know him very well, but when I knew him less, I was like, oh, he's just an asshole, Right. But then I saw this character in him, and I suddenly found myself like endeared to him. I was like, oh, he's not a bad guy. He's just like
he's comfortable with who he is, and he's self-aware about it.
Exactly.
Those are two great qualities.
So that's important. It's also important with keeping your business moving forward and realizing when there are things that need to be changed. And the most important part, which kind of is a tangent that I'll keep short, is maybe you are good at getting things going, and maybe you are the father or mother of this idea. Maybe you're not the one to keep it moving forward. And
yeah, that's like a serious conversation to have with the founders.
It's a very serious conversation. This conversation will come up at some point in your career.
Yeah.
And you need to be receptive of it. Right. Because your job is to make sure that your business succeeds, not that you succeed as the CEO of your business.
Phil Libin, I think, uses this analogy, which, again, another sports analogy, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about, the sport that you're playing at each stage of business is a completely different sport. So think about how stupid it would sound to start playing tennis for a year and assemble like the best set of tennis teams to do your tennis tournaments, right? And then switch to playing football and be like, okay, all those same people have to be really good at football now. Just like, that's not how it works, right? I mean, the transitions aren't as abrupt, but building something from literally nothing to Series A is a certain skill set. There may be some overlap with going from Series A to Series B and that skill set, but there actually might be that overlap starts to disappear. And running a publicly traded company, for example, has very little to do with starting a company successfully. Right. And people who are great public CEOs, CEOs of publicly traded companies, that doesn't mean they're good at all at starting something from scratch.
That's right.
And the reverse is true. There are people like, let's say, Mark Zuckerberg, who are able to kind of do the whole thing, but they're exceptional and unusual. Actually, Elon Musk is another example, but that's not typical. And there are plenty of examples of people who are really good at taking it so far, handing it off to someone else that they know is competent from here on out, and changing their role, and then doing another thing.
And look, if you are actually self-aware enough to kind of like nip this one in the butt when it starts to become a problem, you become a part of the solution, retain more of the company, and avoid a hostile takeover.
Right. So if
which is a very hard concept.
Yeah. That we shouldn't talk about that too much. Yeah.
We could talk about that in a whole nother episode, but literally, like, if you become a problem and an impediment, people will find a way to get you out of your own company.
Absolutely.
And you will not retain much of it,
right?
If anything.
Whereas if they approach you, let's even say you don't initiate it, but if they approach you and you say you're like, hey, we're worried about this or that or whatever, and if your response is, maybe I'm not the right person to be the CEO, like, let's consider that.
Yeah.
That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength. And if you've got a good board, they will welcome that discussion. And maybe the conclusion is you are the right CEO. You just need different resources. And maybe the conclusion is like, wow, you are an awesome founder. You're completely right. Yeah. Let's give someone else the jobs that you don't want to do or aren't as good at. You move to this other role, but now you've got support from all of them. They're not trying to push you out. You still have a lot of control over the direction and the product or whatever it is that you're better at and want to do. and you're all more successful and happy for it.
Yeah, so early on in my startup career, I remember going to this Get Satisfaction summit. Get Satisfaction is the little widget that sits on some websites where you can like provide feedback, and so they're a plug-in for a lot of websites. I go there, it's a pretty cool conference, a lot of like social media managers, that kind of thing. The CEO was up on stage, and she gave this very eloquent talk about the community, how important it is, and it was kind of like meta because we're in a community talking about building community for a platform that helps cultivate community. Anyways, she was giving this great talk, and he's like, but first, I really want to just recognize our amazing founding team, and she points to it and like spotlight goes, and there's like 3 guys, or 2 guys and a girl, I think, standing near a column in the back, and like, they're the co-founders, they still sit on our board. I'm the CEO of Ola. And it was just like very friendly atmosphere. They were there at the conference, It was great. It could have gone like a much different direction.
Yeah.
Anyways, we didn't even talk about that at the conference.
We went on a tangent again. So
die.
Awesome word.
And it's in red, so it's more impactful.
Mm-hmm. So what's talk about dying, Dan?
Well, so the whole concept is, if overnight successes take 7 years to make, how long is your company going to take to make, right? So everyone's like, what the fuck does that mean? And it's like, and a lot of the like big unicorn startups, like they aren't like little startups that just grew overnight. They're companies that
you just noticed them one day.
Yeah, you noticed them after they've been operating for 7 years. Right. So it's like your company might take 20 years to make. So are you willing to die like doing what you're doing? Like, is it worth it? Like, is your why strong enough? And get into that. We could talk that ad nauseum, but the point is, like, this is a long process. It's hard. You might die, and that's not just the old founders. It's like, this is just a long process, and it must be worth it. On top of that, it takes a lot out of you, so make sure you're eating well, you're exercising, and you don't die.
Yeah.
So don't die.
It's hard. I mean, honestly, it's very hard to do, maybe not the third one, but it's hard to do the first 2 of those things as an early stage founder.
It is.
It's harder than you would imagine.
No.
Because there's like, it's hard to keep a schedule.
Yep.
It's hard to like get your sleep properly. You're constantly going to like lunch meetings or these kind of meetings or whatever, and so you're eating whatever the fuck is in front of you. Often exercise feels like you don't have time for it. Recently, you've been pretty good at it.
I've been better.
I go through phases.
Travel makes it very difficult.
Travel makes it really hard.
But even in travel, like that's next level, like regulation. Like you do it while you're traveling. It's
But it really does help if you can do it.
It does. And to that point,
especially
like
the not dying.
Like even when things weren't hard, I was just like sucked into what I was doing, and like my blood pressure was higher. I know I wasn't eating well, and like I was I think I might have gone almost a year without exercising. Like, it's very easy to fall into that when you're just sucked into what you're doing. But it's important because your health relies on it, and without health, you got nothing, right?
And actually, there's been plenty of studies to prove that you are more mentally acute
that is
with
true.
regular exercise.
Yeah,
and productive.
And so finally, trying, which I almost changed this word to doing, because I'm a big fan of having periods in your life or in your business cycle, whichever.
To Yoda, are we going?
Yeah. Okay. Here, I'll just jump to it. So it's there. No, those are notifications, but it's on my phone. It's do or do not. There is no try. Like I've been at companies before. It's like, oh, we're going to try this. And I'm like, that's not a good test because you didn't actually try. That was like a half-assed try. Like you need to do it. Like you need to commit to doing it. But the important part about trying is that you do have periods in your life and you do have periods in your business cycle where you are trying different things and you are experimenting and you're always trying to make sure that you're on the right trajectory. And you do that through trying. But again, do or do not. There is no try.
Right. You do that through doing. Thank you, Yoda.
That's right, Yoda. And that's kind of the note that I ended on. And, it's it was very rewarding to have been there for Sasha's last day at the incubator that he was running. And he came to me, he's like, well, the next day he came to me, he's like, I had a hard time sleeping last night. And I'm like, oh, please explain. He's like, well, I was planning on taking like 2 months off to vacation and go hang out with Paul Brigil, like, you know, in Thailand or
Sasha
something.
knows Paul?
Yeah,
Cool.
they're good friends.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I think I want to get started now. And I'm like, do you know what you're doing? He's like, not really. I'm like, well, you can have an effective vacation where you're actually like using it as brainstorming time and becoming comfortable about your pursuit, but because it's kind of hard to do without knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So try things. But yeah, it was, you know, just it was fun to jump up on stage with lack of sleep and just talk about what I'm truly passionate about, the pursuit, kind of give a little bit of window into kind of my journey. And yeah, connect with an audience that I've been kind of popping in and out of, you know, periodically for the last like several years. So
Awesome.
that was Berlin for me.
Well, it sounds pretty great. I'm still not sure it was worth leaving me for, but it sounds pretty awesome.
If we have investors that come from Germany, it will be.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Michael, should we be? I don't know if you're on the mic back there or just hanging out. Should we be talking about anything else, or do you think we're good? Time frame, we're all good. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh shit. I guess I could have looked at my.
That's a good time.
Yeah, that is a good time. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on Gateway Open Office Hours, Ben.
Maybe I'll come back sometime soon.
Maybe I'll let you guest host next week.
Okay.
And, but everyone, you can join us every week at oh.gtwy.co at 10 a.m. on Fridays. That will just redirect you to Facebook. You can also go to our YouTube channel, probably Gateway Incubator, type it in, find it. And podcasts, as I mentioned, iTunes and Google Play. Get the Gateway Open Office Hour podcast. As a reminder, we broadcast each week from the phenomenally odd, ugly Leviathan building in downtown Jack London Square out of Gateway Works. If you want, Michael, $100 off your first month, use some kind of code, Gateway OH maybe as a code, or just tell Michael you saw us and you get $100 off your first month. That is for people who are in or around the cannabis industry and want co-working space where you're allowed to go out on the really cool balcony and smoke all you want. So join us next week. Thanks, everyone. That's it.
Thanks, everyone. Good to be back.